and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, give it a rewatch, and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back.
You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, "What?
What am I watching?
Why this film?"
I'm joined today by Richard. Hello!
Hello.
Oh, welcome. Your chosen movie is Short Circuit 2, the IMDb breakdown. Robot Johnny Five comes to the city and gets manipulated by criminals who want him for their own purposes. Why this film?
It's just such a great type of podcast, isn't it? Because you get straight in. Why this film? This is a film that completely overrides all of my critical functions whatsoever. I could just watch Short Circuit 2. I'll be completely untroubled by it. Like, it's just this big kind of warm bath of a film. With some problematic elements, of course, but it's something from... This was one... I've always loved robots, right? Like, if I was a child, you'd give me a robot or a train, done. And my mum knew that, and this was something... I don't know if you remember this, Emily, but it's something that's gone. But you used to be able to... Most off licenses used to rent videos. So it'd be like a video rental in the corner. Yeah. And my mum used to go to the Thresher up on our estate, on the arcade there, and rent me Short Circuit 2, because that would mollify me for an hour and a half without question. I'd watch Short Circuit 2. And for some reason, I watched the first one. First one's fine. It doesn't slap like Short Circuit 2 slaps, though, in my view. So that's why I think. But I do genuinely, like, you know, as an adult watching it, and I can view it with a more critical eye, I still think it really holds up, and it's a really lovely movie. It's still just completely works for me.
Yeah, so I really didn't know anything about the Short Circuit, so I've not seen Short Circuit 1. And I'm like aware in the sort of the zeitgeist of Johnny Five as like a thing, but not massively. Like, I wouldn't have been able to tell you really what he looked like or what he sounded like or anything like that. So this was completely new to me, and I love that it overrides all of your critical circuits, because it's just charming and sweet, and they don't make them like this anymore. For better or for worse. So I'd be interested to know. I was trying to look up Short Circuit 1, and you don't seem to be alone in this. Lots of people apparently are like, 1's fine, but 2
Oh,
though.
really?
And that's really funny.
I didn't know that. Okay, so it's not just me, because that's one of these things that I personally think, like, Gremlins 2 is vastly superior to the first one. And I've got my reasons. I think Gremlins 2 is an amazing, really clever film. But people don't like that. People don't like to be told that. Yep. Luckily, people don't generally feel as strongly about Short Circuit, as far as I can tell. But yeah, I just thought it was me. Well, that's lovely. That's good.
Yeah, it hasn't come across my radar.
I'm glad you used the word. You used the word charming. Which I think
it's super cute.
Yeah, it's so cute, isn't it? It's a really cute, sweet, lovely movie.
So it sort of opens, and it's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. It was an hour 50, and the first 20 minutes is like pure setup for future plot devices. Some diamonds arrive at the bank. A guy makes friends with Mr. Green from Clue. He was going to be in this movie, and that's how I know everyone knows him now from Better Call Saul. But like, to me, that actor is Mr. Green from Clue, and he's wonderful. I love him so much. So immediately I was like, I'm on board. I love that guy. Yeah. We'll come back to the other character, because I think we're going to need to talk about that in like some depth.
Yeah.
So the first 20 minutes, and I was like, sorry, I thought this movie was about a robot. Like, why has all of this bullshit been happening?
All of this bullshit.
Where's the robot? Like, literally, I was so...
I've been missold PPI. What the fuck is this?
And then this box arrives, and I was like, genuinely really excited, and genuinely like, oh my god, is that the robot? Is the robot here? And then the robot comes out, and I fell in like in 2 seconds flat, and I was like, thank God you're here, because I'm now gonna follow you to the bitter end.
Right.
Because everyone else I was like umming and ahhing about, but I will pursue you for the next hour and a half, Johnny 5.
Yeah.
Number Johnny
Number
5.
Johnny 5. It's like, so in the first movie he's made is like, they kind of fill you in a bit in the second one, but the first one is a little bit, it's got a slightly adult tone, slightly. It's a little bit sweary-ish. I think, you know, someone says like, people say crap and damn or whatever, and like, it's got a bit of menace to it because they're created as war droids, and there are 5 of them. And he's the one that he gets struck by lightning and becomes sentient. You know, none of that really matters. It's not the point. His becoming sentient is the point. And then they send their other robots after him, and they have red eyes and they shoot lasers, and it's quite menacing and it's quite sort of dark in places. It is great. It is great, but it's no Short Circuit 2. So the first one has a kind of a slight air of menace, and it's a little bit scary in that kind of 80s kids film way. This has like when he gets attacked. Like, that's pretty messed up. Like, he's kind of screaming and stuff and everything. Yeah. But it doesn't have a... it's a... Fuck Robocop. This is the true Christ allegory. This is the real Catholic. Yeah, you know, I love that you fell in love with him because it's just this very lovable character. In the first one, he's very kind of childlike because he's just been born and he's learning. And he still has that kind of naivety in this. How good is the puppetry in this? Like
I didn't even. It's only now that you said the P word that I've even considered that Johnny 5 isn't just Johnny,
real.
That's Johnny 5 as himself.
Yeah,
that's a real thing. That's all puppet. That's like the whole movie is people being like, how is this being controlled? What? And you buy it. You're like, it's not being controlled. That's Johnny 5. Like, say hi.
It's great, isn't it?
Like, I fully believed that he was like an actor.
Such a well-realised character. Like, I think just the kind of what they do sometimes. So every now and then, it's clearly just like an arm on a stick being swung past camera for some bits, and obviously close up. So I think like, have you ever watched Adam Savage's Tested on YouTube? He's the guy from MythBusters.
No.
So he will. He gets his hand on old movie props and talks about how they were built and stuff. And recently he had one of the Johnny 5 puppets from Short Circuit 2, and he was just going through it and like, this is how it works and stuff, because it needs to move autonomously. Because there's loads of scenes where he moves on the tank tracks, right? But then he's moving his arms and talking because it's all radio controlled. And there's things like, I guess it's like the iris from a camera in the eyes and the kind of flaps. So there's all these separate operators, but then they would have things like wire versions to pick things up and stuff. And like, if you don't know it, I think it's really what makes it kind, you know, to me as a kid, this was magic. It was absolutely magical. It was just absolutely real and magical and wonderful. And I really think just it's not just the design and the way that a team of people made it feel like a living entity, like a real thing. You know, I think it's so lovely. And
yeah, completely.
And he's not, I think it'd be very, probably people disagree, but it'd be very easy for this character to just be annoying. Like, it'd just be annoying.
Oh my God, completely. And there was a moment where I was like, well, I wonder what Johnny 5's going to be like. Is he going to be obnoxious or is he going to be charming? Because he's going to have to be the latter. Otherwise, this movie is going to be impossible to get through.
Hard going.
And things that I was like worried about, because it's funny, there's a genre of movie that often comes onto this podcast I'm always a little bit apprehensive about because it's so opposite to like what I'm into, and it's this kind of thing. It's this like it is a neutral gender movie, but it like is also a boys movie purely because it's clearly not a girls movie, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Well, again, like my mum,
it's not that it's a boys movie, it's that it's not a girls movie.
Yeah, my mum would have bought this for me because it had a robot on it, and I like robots and gadgets and toys, so that's why.
Completely.
The first one has a bit more of a kind of, because it has a female lead character alongside a male lead character, so it has that kind of
nice
in Ali Sheedy, and she kind of runs an animal sanctuary, and she kind of nurtures him because he's kind of born and then comes into her life, so they're almost like surrogate parents to him, but it also has people running around with guns and the army and the military and stuff, so it's a bit more.
Yeah.
But no, I take your point totally, and it's about a robot, and that's believing the kind of traditional gendered crap, and that's what boys like, you know, and whatever. So I totally take that point.
Yeah. And so I'm always a bit apprehensive where I'm like, what am I, like, I love movies for kids, I really do. And I can usually find something enjoyable in most films that I watch. But when I come to this type of thing, I'm always like, oh, like, I wonder how it's going to get me. Like, what's going to be the emotional core. I really loved that the supporting characters were just like two adult men, because they so easily could have paired Johnny Five up with some like annoying John Connor type.
Yeah, put them in with the kid.
I mean?
Yeah,
like they so easily
totally. And this is definitely
could have just paired him up with this like New York street talking like child, and it would have been abysmal.
Isn't it? It's just it's very much like, again, if you ever do, if you do get your way around to watch the first one, this very much feels like, when they do kind of a softer sequel for broader appeal. Like, this is definitely had the edges sanded off, but I think it works for it. And yeah, they so easily could have put an irritating child in here. But Michael McKean, like, or Mr. Green from Clue, he's from, Spinal Tap, you name it, all a million things. And he's such a brilliantly strong performer. And he's one of these people, whatever he turns, like, he does a great turn in The Good Place, he's in Good Omens, like, wherever you put him in, he fits in. He's just like this total A-game performer, whatever it is. And him and Fisher Stevens just kind of fit in together, because Fisher Stevens' character is a smaller role. He plays second fiddle to Steve Guttenberg basically in the first movie, so and it's a much, and they put him to the front. Right. And like, I really think that the romance that he has with Cynthia Gibb is really sweet as well. It's really nice, sweet romance, and it has the kind of dodgy bits are sort of dealt with quite quickly. It's like, oh, you tried to trick me and I busted you, instead of that being the kind of 80s film thing of that being all right and whatever. But the kind of thing of like when she comes, because she knows she has to save him, and it's because,
oh my god, that bit was fantastic.
It's lovely, isn't it? Because the thing they shared was like rock and roll, so they knew to do a did like whatever, like it doesn't make any sense if you break. It's like you'd have to be the most incredible genius ever to reverse engineer that puzzle. It doesn't matter. And it's got I need a hero on the end. Like, that bit's amazing.
Oh, the second best movie to have I Need a Hero as the climax song.
He does the Tarzan swing across.
And he was literally, when I saw him watch Tarzan on the TV, I was like, I'll see you later, Tarzan swing. Yeah. And like, I was so excited for that to happen. I love that he has input, and not in like a frightening way. Like, he's truly just like, it's a really good message. I think if I was a kid, I would follow that and want to like learn as much as possible. Like, it's really endearing watching him be like, I can get through that bookstore in like 35 minutes, just let me learn everything I can. And you got to keep it secret that he's in a city, because he's going to go crazy if he goes out into the city, because there's so much input. And he's like, a city, and you're like, oh, let him go see the city.
Oh, it is this one, isn't it, where he goes like, he picks up the book and he goes like, I think the butler did it. He did, and just chucks it over his shoulder. It's good. It's great.
It's so good.
Because he's a curious. That's, I think, why this is so endearing. He's a curious soul, and it's someone driven by the desire to learn and improve himself, and that's what he always talks about. And so, like, they say, he's got his shoulder thing. That was his laser cannon, and then he's specific. It's like, no, I don't do that. I don't want weapons. So he's got the hang glider and stuff in it. When he says, Benjamin says to him, "What happened to your laser cannon?" He's like, "No, I don't do killing. I don't do." So he's a wholesome, sweet character.
I love that he turns up covered in like rainbow stickers, and he's got a toolbox on his back where he keeps fun things, and like he's just such a brilliantly designed creature. Like, clearly walked not even like he's the OG, but like Wally is so clearly inspired by him.
Hugely,
like hugely. He's so humanoid whilst also being entirely robot. Like, it's so clever how they do it, how they design him.
It's a very good, so again, referring back to the first movie, like, because it's supposed to be a war droid, right? And when you see it as that, it's actually quite sinister and quite frightening. And it's, as a design, it's like, if this was a film about killer robots, you'd be like, yeah, that's a scary robot. But then, and it serves the purpose of the narrative so well. It's like, yeah, but if you give it a soul, it's just as kind and lovely as anybody else would be. And it's, because they, like I said, that their eyes glow red and stuff. And someone recently edited the evil Johnny Fives into Predator. And it's like, I'll send it to you after this. It's so brilliant because there's loads of footage of them running around the woods with lasers coming out, and you just cut that into Jesse Ventura's chest exploding, and it just works perfectly. But yeah, it's such a brilliant design. It's so I've thought that for years and years, and I still, because I do still chuck this on every now and then. Like if I just want a quiet afternoon, I'll put Short Circuit 2 on. It's so. But do you know what? I want the because they're making Johnny Five toys, right? I want one so badly. I want one so bad. And the irony is, like, when you see toys in movies and you can buy the toy, like the Turbo Man toy or whatever, for Jingle All the Way. Like, I don't think you could ever get Johnny Five toys. I've never seen one. Like, yeah, when I searched for it, someone did a really cool Lego build of one, because it's just the most amazing design. Like, it's just this incredible piece of prop work and puppeteering. It's just so good.
Literally.
Yeah.
It would look so good on a shelf. It'd be so fun to play with. Like, they're really missing a trick.
I've got a fucking massive Ed 209 over there, and it's like, I could put the nice robot next to the evil robot. It would be, he could teach him something about rainbow stickers or whatever. Real good, like,
it's so good.
There's so much kind of pathos in it as well. They're really good at doing, like, when he's sad, when he feels betrayed and everything, like, and his feelings about that. And when they, because Matthew McKee's character tries to go and sell him, doesn't he, to that skeezy bunch of dudes, and then he kind of Hudsucker proxies out the window and just, like, sails off. He does the kind of betrayal and sadness and stuff, like because he thinks Oscar's his friend and stuff, and he's really hurt when he betrays him. And when they're attacked, he could take them to pieces, but he doesn't. He defends himself and puts his arms up, but he lets it happen because he doesn't want to hurt anybody, even if they're trying to kill him.
It's brutal. It's really sad. There's like battery acid splatters on one of the attackers, and it's quite upsetting visual. And it really got me. I was like he dies so many times in this movie, or like nearly, when he comes across him in the alleyway and he's using the chalk on the wall to just be like, I'm dying.
Yeah.
I was like,
Your shilk, sir.
It really got me.
Yeah, it's it's not subtle. He bleeds red batter. He's bleeding to death, and he's patched him up with his precious shirt and stuff. I love the because it's basically an action movie tool-up scene, isn't it? It's a parody of that, when he becomes like rock and roll punky with the bandolier and stuff, and they're all fixed. And he's getting Fred to, he's teaching Fred how to fix him up and stuff, and yeah, it's great. I just never feel like, again, it shuts down my kind of critical faculties. So I just sort of just go like, oh, I love this, but I just don't think it wastes time. It's quite a long movie, but I'm never bored. Like I'm never watching a scene going, oh, what's this for? Because he's always learning something or doing something, or something's moving the plot forward. Because
there's always something fun happening.
I like.
Definitely.
I'm really kind of chuffed on your behalf that the first 20 minutes worked so well for you, in that it, keeping him in the box, so to speak.
I literally wrote a thing. I was like, 20 minutes in and we haven't met the robot. And then the box lands on my screen, like immediately as I crossed the T of robot, the box landed on the screen. And I literally wrote, oh, there he is. And then I was like super excited. Whereas if they'd opened with Johnny Five, like, it's such a clever little trick. Like, they so easily could have opened with Johnny Five being like, hello, here he is. And of course, we do have the introduction via the small toys that he's selling on the street. And not being familiar with the source material, I was like, well, is he small? I thought he was like bigger than that. That's weird.
Yeah, it's a great little
for
fake
a bit,
out.
I was like, is that the robot?
Because you come into the second movie wanting Johnny
clever.
Five, and then they give you this, and it's like, oh, what's going on here?
Sure.
And I want one so bad. I want one so bad. They made so many. So cool.
That's so cute.
Like
I love the premise as well, that she's like a buyer and she's like trying to find like the next big toy, and like it's just a really fun premise to hook it all onto.
Yeah, and it's got, I think the romance, while shallow, is quite sweet, and it's kind of broadly quite wholesome, but it's enough to, I'm hesitant to use the word dark because I think it's overused, and it's dullards say when they want to see Batman pulling someone's cock off, whatever they demand for. Do you know what I mean? Like, make it darker. It's just or gritty. That's the same thing. But it goes into kind of gritty. Such an abused word. But it goes to sort of dark places. That is enough. The stakes are high because he's the only one of him that exists. He can't be replaced. You know, if he dies, he dies. And the film makes it very clear if he dies, he dies. And then at the end, you know, they have to have the fake out, so Ben has to like defibrillate him. It's like, well, how does that work? Is it filled with battery acid? Like, what okay. I don't care. I don't care. Johnny's alive. That's all that matters.
I know, literally. I didn't even consider that. You just said it, and I've been like, well, you know what? Because instead, I was like, what don't beat it. Really emotionally invested. Like,
they've got kind of
so good.
The kind of robot, you know, before he becomes alive, like the generic robots, they have the kind of Stephen Hawking vocoder voice, so they're quite kind of sinister and kind of like attack and stuff like that. They're like a Dalek or Cyberman or whatever, they got that kind of thing. But he is the great, you know, it's a great, like Tim Blaney as the voice, who, as you pointed out, is Frank the Pug as well. It's such an amazing performance, and I think it's the thing that Tim Blaney, I would have expected more, like in terms of this is a film they've constantly threatened to remake, and
oh god, no, they couldn't.
Sorry,
it's so 80s.
Not this, sorry, the first. You know what I mean? Like they would have remade the first one, but
yeah. Even so, it's so 80s. You couldn't.
Well, I just kind of wonder, like, you know, how would you premise that? Because I think anything about technology, right? I think there's a relevant way to phrase it, and the thing at the moment is that everything is an Alexa, and it's like, well, don't make Johnny 5 an Alexa. It doesn't make any sense. Like, and then it's something a bit like the RoboCop remake, I guess. It's like, well, you want another one of these because you want the money, but you don't really have anything to say with the premise.
Yeah, you know? That's the thing. If someone's not coming to it with a brilliant updated idea, don't do it.
Yeah, and I don't want the sad Rocky Balboa version where he's been in a crate for 30 years and they bring him out for one last robot. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't want that either. You know, I'm not against a remake. Like, you know what? If someone's got basically it's Chappie, isn't it? Like, Chappie is the remake of Short Circuit.
Yeah, of course.
But if someone's got some amazing premise, I'm not in principle against that. You know. But I would don't fuck with the robot. Like, you can't change because it's just such an amazing design.
It's just fun, and like, you don't really have things for fun's sake anymore.
Yes.
Whereas now you'd have to justify it some way, I imagine.
Right.
Or like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we can't just have nice things.
You can't just have nice things.
He'd have to be like a climate message or something. Like, I don't know. Like, what they would change, I imagine, was so this movie has been accused of whitewashing. I did read the Wikipedia page about it. What are your thoughts on it? If you sort of explain what's going on.
Yeah, well, there were a few. You know, I haven't had time, unfortunately, to cite my sources on this, so I'll just be careful as to what I know and what I've read. And what I've heard. So Fisher Stevens plays an Indian character in brownface and this is the thing with this. This is just sort of like, in a way, it's like telling everybody how sweet your granddad is, and then he walks out in an SS uniform. You know what I mean? It's a bit like Short Circuit's amazing and lovely and great. Here comes the racism. So like, so I think crucially, I would say that Fisher Stevens in brownface playing an Indian character. I don't think there's humour derived from his kind of his use of English, which is in the first movie. Like, he does an accent, but I don't think the portrayal is particularly evil. I don't think it's bad. Like, it doesn't portray that culture negatively. I totally get it should be fucking a Indian actor, you know, but like, it doesn't portray that culture or that race, let's say, negatively. It's wrong-headed and of its time, but it's not a racist portrayal. People from like, and do I think it should be there? No, I don't. I think it should be like an actor of colour playing that part. Of course I do. The thing so Fisher Stevens took it very, very seriously, and apparently like studied Hindi, and he went to India, and he really, you know, bless him. Like, I think he approached it the best possible way. He didn't like just turn up and do a kind of We did turn up and do a kind of
joke accent.
Yeah, like it's he took it seriously. Like it was a mistake. It was a different time and everything, and I don't really want to defend it, but it was something that he at least approached. And I think, they did the documentary The Problem with Apu about The Simpsons. I believe he was spoken to for that on this topic, and he says like, no, of course I wouldn't do it now and stuff like that. There's another timeline where this is played by like Javed Jaffrey, and it's known as the film that had like a fucking Asian lead getting the girl and winning the day instead of, you know what I mean? The way young people are now, and I agree with the way young people are now, if I was like, hey kids, we're going to watch Short Circuit 2, it'd just be like 5 minutes in, like, what? what the fuck are you showing us, Grandad? And I'd be like, I know, I've got my SS uniform on, but I don't, it's a real shame about it. But I don't think it's evil. And I think it was you when we talked about this before. Did you bring up Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's? Was it you, or was I talking with someone else about it? Was it? Yeah, it's the best possible example, because that is the most horrific. Like everything about
it's just abhorrent.
Abhorrent. Exactly.
It's like a crime. It's like a hate
basically,
crime.
yeah, a classical Hollywood hate crime, like fucking Song of the South or Birth of a Nation. Do you remember watching Birth of a Nation? Like we watched Birth of a Nation in school, and they were like, "Look, this is racist propaganda, but the editing's really good." It's like, because it invented, D.W. Griffith invented parallel editing. So it's like, well, we have to show you the first example of parallel editing. It just happens to be in a white nationalist propaganda film.
Fuck.
Fun times.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is In a Barbie World,
The podcast where we look at every Barbie movie from 1987 to the present day.
from fairy tales to literary classics.
From Mariposa to Mermaidia.
It's time to get unboxed,
Readjust your lippy,
rock the ball gown,
and let's get our Barbie on.
It's just sort of endemically sweet, isn't it?
It is. Even when he stole all those car radios, I was like, oh.
Yeah, because what do they say? They're the car radio inspectors or something. Like they're
they're like, we need to do all of these cars. We need to get the radios out of them. And he joins the gang, and he gets a little waistcoat, and you're like, oh, what are you up to? What are you doing?
Are they, Los Lobos kick your ass. Los Lobos kick your face. Los Lobos kick your balls into outer space. We used to do that on the playground, because this was on one weekend or something, and we were on the playground doing that. And then I think someone had to talk to our teacher and just be like, they're singing this song from somewhere. It was that and going input and flicking through books really quickly. We used to, because this was something that the kids in my school went fucking nuts for this. Like, we all loved it. It was just the best. We all went kind of bananas for it.
I love that, like a real moment in time. Whereas I'm coming to it a few years later, and I'm like, it's not really made an impact. I've never seen it being shown on TV. Nobody talks about it in the same way that people have slowly started talking about Labyrinth more and more. Like truffleshuffle.com doesn't really do Johnny Five t-shirts in a way that they do for other Flight of the Navigator, say. So it's not, I wouldn't say forgotten, but perhaps a little bit.
It's kind of there. It's just sort of there. This is what I mean, because I remember a time when if you wanted a figure of a xenomorph, that just wasn't a thing. And it's probably it's still that was the case about 20 years ago. And now there's ones based on a cancelled video game. There's a million. You know what I mean? There's a can you get a Johnny Five anywhere? You just can't. I don't want this to. This is about the cultural impact. It's not about my longing for a Johnny Five toy. It's partially about that. But it's a thing. Everybody seems to. I think people of a certain age have seen it. Most people seem to know it. Yourself, you knew it existed, right? But to the degree where when you saw the little robots, you were like, oh, well, maybe the robots are little, because you knew that little, because it's basically. The first one is pretty much it's got one eye very firmly on E.T. You know what I mean? It's very much in that kind of Mac and Me, all the E.T. movies space, I think. You know, so I do think there's that to it, but I don't know. It's funny. I think it's one of those things that my generation of people, being 39 to 40, it was something we'd all watch. It was just a given that you'd seen it. Like my little space of time, it was just a given that you'd seen Short Circuit. Like, and that is no, because it used to be on ITV in the afternoon and stuff like that, but doesn't seem to any longer be the case, which is annoying. And it's not on Netflix anymore. Short Circuit 2. It's really irritating because sometimes I feel like watching gentle robot films, and my gentle robot films, since you're asking, are Short Circuit 2, Robot and Frank, and Batteries Not Included, which is kind of an alien film, but I did I worked with the director of this once, and I didn't realise at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, well, he was I was shooting him. I was DOP on a documentary he was in, and he's mostly known for the TV show V, with Robert Englund.
Right.
And so it didn't occur to me at all when we were interviewing that he'd because I would have been like, oh, so I want to talk about Short Circuit 2.
So been like, hello.
So I didn't bring it up with him, so he was mostly talking about V, and it didn't occur to me, and it's only later I was like, because I've got the poster for that movie was on the wall behind me. I've got his fucking signature on the poster for the movie we made, and he wrote over my name where it says director of photography Richard Jackson. He wrote over my name, he directed Short Circuit 2, so I am quite a lot, in all honesty. But I pieced that together because this is one of these things. I was so young when I watched this, it didn't even occur to me that this had a director till much later. It was like, no, this happened. This is a real thing that happened.
Yeah, this is a documentary.
I just followed that robot around and that man in brown face that's not getting beaten up for some reason. So that was I worked with him for a day doing stuff, but didn't know who he was, so I didn't. Well, I did, but I didn't know.
Probably for the best, because you probably would you have just literally been like, hello.
I would have been most of.
Would you have been insufferable?
Probably. There's one or two people on that job when we did it where I was like one of them was Tony Todd, and I was like, don't talk about Star Trek, don't talk about Star Trek, don't talk about Star Trek, don't talk about Star Trek. He started talking about Star Trek, and I called cut, or director called cut, and I cut on my cameras. And I just went, oh, excuse me, this episode was my favourite for Star Trek. And he didn't talk to me about it. There's an episode of DS9 called The Visitor, and I said to him, that's my favourite episode of Star Trek ever. And he said, thank you, it's mine too. I wasn't raised by a parent, I was raised by my grandma or something. And he gave me this other, and I was just like, oh my God. So if I'd known that, I'd have just said to Kenneth Johnson, I know it's a bit racist, but I love Short Circuit 2. Thank you so much for bringing this mildly racist film into my life.
Oh, lovely. Well, tell the people who you are and where we can find you and what you're doing.
It's Sunday, I'm hungover, I wasn't ready for this. Yes, I'm on a channel called Valverde Broadcasting. You can find us on YouTube. If you put that into YouTube, it will pop up. And I've got a short film coming out soon somewhere. We don't know yet, called Types You Bleed. And if you go to typesyoubleed.com, you can read all about that.
Whoop, whoop. And I'll put all the links in the description. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me today.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you next time on Why This Film.